Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. You might have realized that I didn't say a weekly overlook even though today is Sunday, and that's because I am going to be posting the daily forecast and the weekly overlook separate now so we don't get too long of a video for either a forecast or a weekly overlook, and you're not having to sift through the forecast and the weekly overlook to find either the forecast for today or the weather for the rest of the week. So I've decided to now post them separate. So currently, let's take a look at the weather for today. You can see that we do have a dual slight risk setup, one for the eastern coast of the United States that extends from parts of southern New York into parts of northern South Carolina, and another one that is back towards the Louisiana area in the Dixie Valley region that goes across the majority of Alabama and Mississippi into parts of Louisiana. This is all tied together by a marginal threat that extends up into Canada all the way into Texas, and there is another marginal threat that is for northern Montana that I probably won't cover too much in today's forecast, but I will cover it in today's triggering factors. As for threats for today, we don't have all that much of a tornado threat. As for our wind threat, we do have a 15% for both slight risk locations, tied together by a 5% for the marginal threat locations, with a 5% on that marginal threat that is back towards southern Minnesota. And then as for our hail threats, we don't have any hail threats today. However, we could definitely see the possibility of maybe some isolated hail in some locations, specifically near the Dixie Valley slight risk location. Taking a look at our pivotal weather model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do, today might be a little bit of a shorter video because there isn't really all that much to cover in today's forecast, and I won't be covering wind shear or storm relative felicity with the fact that there is no tornado threat for today. So I think today's forecast is going to be relatively shorter, if not significantly shorter, than any other forecast that I posted so far. So currently looking at our 500 millibars, you can see that we do have the jet stream that is pretty weak today. However, it is expected to strengthen with this mid-level impulse that is back towards California and Nevada for today. However, as that reaches the Colorado and Central Plains region in the high plains, it is likely going to trigger severe weather development by tomorrow, I think. However, for initial development for today, you can see that we do have two main regions of severe weather development. We have along the Atlantic coast as well as along the Dixie Valley region along the Gulf Coast, with that slight risk that is back towards the Dixie Valley region. You can see that the Atlantic coast severe weather event is likely going to develop and then diminish before the Dixie Valley severe weather event has really all that time to really get going. So it's likely going to be two separate locations for severe weather development. And then you can see the marginal threat that is back towards northern Minnesota. You can see a very strong shortwave trough making its way out of Canada associated with a low pressure system, I think around the Hudson Bay, around this location. It could be further up north. However, this shortwave trough is going to be the main triggering factor for severe weather development back towards the northern Minnesota region. You can see overall, due to how weak the jet stream is back towards the slight risk region that is along the Atlantic coast, as well as ahead of the storm development in the Dixie Valley region, I don't think our shear is going to be too strong today. However, the Dixie Valley region might be the main area that we could see the possibility of more explosive storm systems for today with stronger mid-level flow, maybe the possibility of some isolated small hail to maybe some isolated medium hail, but it's likely going to be small because of the fact that the SPC did not issue any hail threat for this location in particular, or any hail threat at all for today. So we could most likely see at most the possibility of some isolated small hail and the possibility of some strong damaging outflow gusts. Taking a look at our dew points, you can see that we do have some fairly strong dew points in both locations. We have dew points that are most likely going to stay mostly in the 70s, and depending on our lapse rates, we could see the possibility of maybe Cape values that do reach as high as maybe the mid 3000s, depending on our lapse rates. Even with the weak lapse rates, we could definitely see the possibility of maybe some low 3000s, maybe some very low mid 3000s, but it is definitely going to get up into the upper moderates at least. And then taking a look at our lapse rates, you can see that we do have some fairly overall very weak lapse rates. You don't see any region really that has any notable strong lapse rates. The only place I can really see that might be affected with some steep lapse rates is the possibility of some mid sixes to possibly some upper sixes back towards the northeastern area of that slight risk region in the Dixie Valley. However, because of how overall weak these lapse rates are, again, widespread, and how strong our dew points are, we we are likely going to get some overall weaker overall Cape values compared to if we had stronger lapse rates. However, we could definitely see the possibility of Cape values that do reach the 3,000s a day. And then taking a look at our instability, you can see that we do have some fairly strong instability in the areas that's going to be affected. You can see that we do have instability that is expected to reach up to the 3,000s, likely the mid 3,000s, possibly the low 3,000s, and the upper 2,500 in the upper moderates. You can see in both locations where that slight risk region is, there's Cape values that do reach the 3,000s. So we could definitely see the possibility of some strong damaging outflow gusts, as well as the possibility of maybe some isolated small hail. However, with very weak wind shear that I probably won't take a look at because of overall very weak mid-level flow in the regions in particular, I will not take a look at wind shear again. But again, tornadoes are going to be unlikely, but they would be possible with Cape like this. But again, with weak wind shear, they are not going to be possible. However, with Cape like this, our main threats for today are likely going to be the possibility of some isolated small hail, as well as the possibility of some damaging outflow gusts. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator. And join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. And if you live in any of the areas I covered for severe weather today, then please stay weather alert for the time being if you have any plans. And then make sure to check back later, I think maybe in 1 or 2 hours, for a weekly overlook.